once you can make that shift, now you can make amazing progress because you're done trying to take care of yourself. All those parts of yourself are pushed away, you can't accept. All those things about yourself you don't like, you can accept that and integrate that to where you're actually a whole, coherent being and actually be who you are. The reason why I create these egos, the reason why we want to be somebody else is because we don't like who we are, which means we're living a lie. Once you actually accept, understand, fully integrate yourself, you don't need that anymore. You just get to be you, in your most authentic expression in the best way possible.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Jazz for Peace podcast, where the final solution is love. And today we have something very special for you. We have the holidays coming up, so why not give you something special? And this is special, in my opinion, because this man is numerous things here coming at you. Author, hypnotist, veteran, former intelligence officer. He's focusing on things like peak mental performance, which is, of course, something people are interested in. But, you know, his overall theme, which I love, is ending internal conflict and suffering. And when I saw that, I was like, man, this is something that really resonates with the people who watch this show. And I really hope people everywhere. So welcome to the Jazz for Peace podcast, Ryan Christenson.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's an honor to be here.
Where are you? How did this whole thing start with you? Do you live now where you lived? I mean, where you live now, and where did you grow up, and how did this whole thing come together?
So I grew up in Kansas. I was there for, I don't know, like 22 years. Left in right after my 21st birthday, right before my 22nd birthday in June of 1997.
Flat, right? When I think of Kansas, I always think it's flat as anything, right? Yeah, because I've been through there on a bus. I used to travel with a big band called the Artie Shaw Orchestra, and man, you were going flat for forever. It was incredible.
Ever, yeah. There's actually an interesting atmospheric. Yeah, there's actually an interesting atmospheric phenomenon where like we were driving to my grandparents' house, and like at night the atmosphere is such where the light actually bends around the horizon, so you can actually see the lights from the town over the horizon, just like one of those things because it's so flat, right?
Right.
But so left there in 97, joined the Marine Corps, spent some time in California learning language, a little bit of West Texas, kind of finishing that up. 3.5 years in Hawaii, went back to Kansas for a couple of years, spent 17 years in DC. That's where I did the counterterrorism, counterproliferation stuff. Moved down to Austin, Texas back in 2021. Been loving it here ever since.
Okay. Now, were you involved in hypnotism when you were, I'm assuming it came after your time as a veteran, right? So when did that whole, and how did it start? I mean, where did this all come from?
So, you know, it was kind of a rough time for me because I have autism. Didn't really get diagnosed with that until last year when I was almost 48 years old. So I grew up in a situation where the world worked for everybody else and not for me. Like everybody else, it just works just fine. I just cannot get what I want. So life has not really been worth living for me since I was a kid for a very real reason. And so the way that I kind of kept myself going was like heroic sacrifices. I'm reading a lot of like military fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, that kind of thing. So this idea of like putting yourself up for the greater good, like becoming Batman, right? Trying to save Gotham City. Batman's life sucks, but he's a real good things around, right? Which is kind of like what led me to the whole career in the military and the intelligence field and so forth and so on. But by the time 2019 rolls around, they're not letting me do the fun stuff anymore. I don't get to play international man of mystery anymore. I'm doing like more project management stuff. And I'd gotten out of a second divorce. Dating was hard. So I started getting involved with a lot of personal improvement stuff, you know, a couple of men's groups and things like that. One of the guys who won these men's groups was a hypnotist talking about toxic shame and emotional baggage. Catholic, got some of that, sure. So I went and did a session with him and like everything felt lighter. Like if you're carrying around 50 pounds worth of stuff, dump 20, 30 pounds, everything's just easier. I was at that place where I needed to like start making that career change, time to do something new. And I thought about becoming a psychologist, but that was going to be like $500,000 in 6 years to get done, unappealing in your 40s. I just knew I didn't have the psychological sort of runway for that. But I get certified as a hypnotist in like 6 weeks for $2,000. That sounded a lot more appealing. So I got certified in February 2020. And right after that, everything shut down. Can't go to work anymore. Doing classified stuff, can't work from home. So I got all this time on my hands, right? So
now,
I started working with some people.
This was how long?
February, March. This was February. Yeah, 2020, February, March.
Okay, right so just at the pandemic, this happened. You got certified right at the pandemic. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So got all this time on my hands, started working with some folks online, realized I have a bit of a talent for it, got a little bit more training and another couple of techniques under my belt, launched my business in April of 2020 and went full-time in October of 2020.
Okay, so that's what I didn't realize, how new this all is for you.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
are you noticing some like elements? Like, does it heal is it good for autism? Can it heal autism? Do you
No,
hypnotize
no, no, no.
yourself, or how does this all work?
So part of the problem is, one of the things I realized between like 2019, 2023, I was on this big self-improvement journey. I basically declared war on my BS, right? Like, I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure out a way to make life worth living. I've got to figure out how to get what I want in life. And that means fixing my head. And so I did everything, right? I did the therapy and the coaching, the belief stuff and the somatic work and the energetic stuff and the Reiki and the spiritual retreats and the psychedelics and the hypnosis. I did every freaking thing.
Wow.
Right?
Because I did
I
see that and I was like, oh my God. I like,
yeah.
I don't know if there's enough time, but I want to hear about that too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I want to hear about when I look at at all the stuff you've done. So you went through all of that, and then you found hypnotism. Amazing.
Well, I've been doing hypnosis before I started on that journey. So I always kind of knew the problem was my unconscious mind. But the thing I realized is, by doing all this stuff, nothing actually works the way they said it does. Nothing can actually deliver the result that they say. So that I had to go through this process of kind of like reverse engineering, like all the implicit assumptions and actually how stuff works, to figure out what the left and right limits were, so I could figure out what tool to use at which part of the process. But because all the problems are really in your unconscious mind, hypnosis is really the only tool to do that. Psychedelics kind of open the door, take you on a journey, give you a lot of exposure to that. But it's really hard to do a lot of work when you're on that ride and you don't have the ability to like target what you really want to. So if you know the problem, hypnosis is really a tool to use. But a lot of the hypnosis techniques that they have out there don't really have that kind of permanent result that you really want. So I had to essentially develop my own set of techniques, have people do the work on me in order to get to the place where I'm at, and then do a lot of work on myself. But one of the difficult things about self-improvement work is, if you're kind of at war with your mind, if you got that kind of conflict, you got that tension, then two things are true. Number one, it doesn't trust you. If it doesn't trust you, it's not going to let you make some big changes. Number two, all the changes you want to make are to allow yourself to do stuff that it thinks is dangerous. So it doesn't really let you do that. So my mind flat out, even though I knew the problem, knew exactly how to fix it, my mind was like, nope, not going to let you. I could not do any work on myself. I always had to hire somebody else to do that deep work for me.
Now, this reminds me a little bit of the ayahuasca situation, where you have to be right with yourself in order to take that. Isn't that correct? I've been in situations where I was in Mexico, and I would go down there and I would ask people. I play concerts in Mexico, and I would ask people, "Hey, I'm down here. Can you take me to the pyramids? Can you take me here?" And I would meet these kind of shaman types of people who would tell me these stories about sending people back, year after year, or even people that went down there. And this is my third try because they won't let me. I come down there and they're like, "Yeah, weren't you supposed to be here yesterday?" Like, they have no, like, he didn't tell them he was coming. Like, they just kind of feel something. It's crazy, he said. And he'd be like, "Yeah, my plane got messed up. How did you know that?" "Well, I don't know, but we were expecting you yesterday, but we, and then they look at him and say, "You're not right with yourself." And he could not go forward. So you're talking about something similar to that.
Yeah. So there's a couple of very interesting parallels. Number one, there's a lot of bad ayahuasca practitioners, so it just lets you roll no matter how bad you are off. But one of the things about psychedelics is that, number one, you do kind of have to be called to it, right? There's got to be that impulse, that curiosity. It's like, if you are not like really called for it, don't roll down that road. Number two, pretty much all of them work different. All of them have a different sort of feel and methodology and kind of the journey they kind of take you on. Ayahuasca in particular is going to take whatever is the heaviest, nastiest, ugliest thing that you need to deal with, shove it in your face and make you deal with it, whether you really want to or not. So if you don't have your stuff sorted out, if you got a lot of baggage, if you're really kind of starting on a journey, that's going to be a very rough ride. And people who go down there in that condition really get messed up. It happens a lot. So ayahuasca in particular, like, that's a heavy run, right? There's another one called Ibogaine, which is also like one of these like really, really powerful ones. It's like a 7-8 hour journey. That's another one where you really got to be serious about going down there and doing that. But there's a charity that does it down in Mexico. They specialize in working with veterans with like PTSD and traumatic brain injuries, stuff like that. Do this Ibogaine journey, and then they'll do some like 5-MeO DMT afterwards, which is the smoked version, and massive changes for these people. Like, psychedelics have the power to really crank stuff open, really kind of get those changes moving. And they were instrumental for me in my journey. Like, I've got a tattoo on my chest that says "I'm alive." The date is July 29th, 2021. I went to retreat for a couple of days, did some psychedelics, MDMA, and psilocybin. And afterwards, I'm feeling amazing. I'm really excited for life. I'm like, outstanding. I can get everything I want. And then it hit me like a brick. This is the first time in my life I'd actually believed that, actually felt that way.
Oh my God.
First time. Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, based on what you're saying, there are enormous upsides that are not being explored with psychedelics.
Well, yes and no. Like the Veterans Administration has been doing a lot of work with like MDMA and ketamine and getting some really good results for people with like PTSD and traumatic brain injury, stuff like that. There's a number of people who are doing alternative treatments for that kind of stuff. And it's a pretty common, well, I wouldn't say common, but it's a pretty well-known set of tools these days. The thing that I have, not issues, but the sort of cautions I would say is like, number one, I don't necessarily look at these as medicines. I look at them as sacraments. They're sacred because they're incredibly freaking powerful. They're dangerous, and you have to be very careful, right? They're connecting you to parts of yourself and probably parts of reality that are not material that we're not necessarily equipped to handle unless we're in a really good space, right? This is not what you do just for fun. If you're doing this stuff for fun, like going really high doses for fun, like I don't know what the hell you're doing. You're rolling the dice in some big stuff. But when you're stuck, when you're just like locked in with stuff and you can't make progress, man, nothing is better for like breaking that log jam and opening yourself up to new possibilities and like creating new space to make some changes. And one of the things about psychedelics kind of period is like once you've done a couple sessions or two, your brain is permanently more open, better wired. There's this sort of like permanent neuroplasticity happens, makes change easier to happen in all these different ways. So in terms of like greasing the skids and getting things moving and making things easier, phenomenal tools. And one of the beautiful things I love about it is that because it's this very powerful thing that kind of like brings stuff up to your awareness that you weren't necessarily aware of, that weren't really something you knew about. Whenever I'm stuck, when I'm like, okay, there's something wrong, I can't figure it out, I either do like somatic work and energetic work to kind of like push the buttons, or I do psychedelics. Why? Because I'm going to push those buttons, see what comes out. It's going to give me awareness of things that I didn't understand. It's giving me awareness of things that I still need to deal with. Great. Now that I know the problem, I've got other tools I can use like hypnosis and other stuff to actually fix those problems and deal with those things. But because I couldn't understand what the problem was, because I couldn't understand what the blockage was, I needed insight to be able to go there. Psychedelics, somatic work, that kind of stuff, phenomenal for that.
Wow. So both hypnotism and psychedelics are relatively new to your journey, would you say?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. So I started with hypnosis in 2019, 2020. I started with psychedelics in the middle of 2021. Yep. Well, again, like I was working in the security, national security stuff. So I had a clearance up until 2020 for like 23 years. I couldn't do any of that stuff.
Okay.
Right. That would jeopardize my clearance. That would jeopardize my ability to do my work because it was illegal on a federal level.
Right.
Can't do that.
Right. Now, would they test you for that stuff during the time you worked, or you just didn't want to take a chance? They didn't.
Well, yeah, when I was in the military, we would have to do drug tests on a regular basis. I didn't have to do it in later years, but like you just don't want to roll the dice for that, because as part of my security clearance, when I was doing the renewals and stuff every like 4 or 5 years, I have to go in and take a polygraph test.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I actually did 2 days of polygraph testing before I could actually do the counterterrorism, counterproliferation work because of the sensitivity of all the stuff we were doing. And when you do the renewals, got to go back to that thing again. And they ask questions like, have you done anything? What have you played with? Have you smoked a little something, something? Have you played a little something, something? Maybe dropped a little something, something? Have you gone to a rave? Those kinds of questions are on that list of stuff they ask. I just didn't want to roll the dice on that.
Oh, yeah.
I take those obligations very seriously. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it's the losses. It's the risk reward is off the charts.
Exactly.
You lose everything for trying to conceal a little rave or something tiny, and you're losing so much. That totally makes sense. Now, it seems you had done the psychedelics before you started hypnotist. So did that open your, or you did it at the same time?
No, I did the hypnosis first, and then I started the psychedelics, right? Okay. But the psychedelics were very much one of the situations where it was definitely opening up and bringing awareness to things that I had not seen. That whole thing about like not really wanting to live up until I was almost 40, in the mid 40s. That was a surprise. Hadn't actually understood that, right? The idea that I didn't really have value as a person, that I was throwing myself kind of away and not really allowing myself to have stuff, that was kind of new. A lot of the stuff that I kind of learned of myself in terms of like accessing those more like energetic spiritual sides of myself, that was not really a part of me up until then. Opened that door, kind of threw me down that rabbit hole, and all of these things really gave me access to an understanding of all these different parts of myself that I hadn't known were available, that I hadn't known were tools I could use, that I hadn't known were places I could explore. And exploring those things, playing with those things very much made that healing journey, made that self-improvement stuff, made leveling myself up so much easier and so much more profound, because it gave me such a broader understanding and deeper understanding of not only the human mind, but the human condition and how we're connected to everything.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, now you've got me thinking, I wonder how this opening of the mind conversation we have would affect a musical improvisation. So
that's an interesting question.
Yeah. And so why not find out? So what we're going to try to do now is I have a little bit of a situation, because we're getting near the holidays, and I've been getting these holiday requests, play holiday songs. So what are you going to do? But I'm going to try to like spin it into something, and using our conversation and just this whole open mind thing that you're talking about. The couple things that I gotten was one was a song called Greensleeves. Another one was a Drummer Boy song. Another one was a song called Hallelujah. I'll figure it out, and I'll kind of put them together, and then we'll go on a journey that's of the now, of the minute, of the conversation, and of the thought of this eye-opening experience that Ryan has had through hypnosis, through ayahuasca. I believe were those journeys in Central America? Isn't it Central America, South America, where they do ayahuasca, or is it here in the States?
Number one, I've never done ayahuasca.
Oh,
that's not the psychedelics I used. I've done a bunch of other stuff, but I have not done ayahuasca.
Oh, not that one. Okay.
Not that one. I've done MDMA and psilocybin and LSD. I've done combo, which is the frog poison. I've done Wachuma, which is the cactus. I've done DMT in different forms. So 5-MeO, NMT, and NMT all together smoked, that was amazing. I've done a couple others besides that, but I haven't done ayahuasca. I haven't done ibogaine. Well, I've microdosed them, but I haven't done actually a flood those.
All right, because I have worked with American Indians who do the peyote rituals, and they would tell me all about that stuff. But anyway, that's a lot. What you did, I mean, that's quite an array. So I played
with a lot. Yeah.
What?
I played with a lot. I've done everything. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite, or are they all just different? They're all unique to their own thing.
They're all unique. So I love psilocybin as a microdose and kind of a light dose to kind of like enhance an experience and kind of like just bring a little bit more creativity to the play. MDMA or sassafras and Wachuma together is a beautiful ride, because Wachuma is kind of like this gentle thing of like kind of bringing up stuff like, would you like to play with this and play with this and play with this? And you add the sassafras, the MDMA to it. It's kind of like, come on, you want to play with this, right? It's kind of like a very seductive, very fun sort of exploration. MDMA on its own is a great time, especially if you've got somebody there that you want to connect with. It's a wonderful place. A lot of the other stuff, it's very much a if I need to go there kind of thing, like LSD, DMT, combo. Those are all very much like if I feel called, like there's some serious heavy work I need to go. Like those are the tools I'll reach to.
Wow. Okay. All right. So let's give this a try and see where this all ends, where this all goes. Yeah. Come, they told me, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, our newborn king to see, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, the finest gifts we bring, pa-rum-pum-pum-pum, to lay before the king, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, rum-pa-pum-pum, rum-pa-pum-pum. Can I play for you? Ba-rum-pa-pum-pum. Me and my drum.
Very nice. Very nice. Well done. Well done. There's
Thank
a couple
you.
jazz clubs here. Yeah, there's a couple jazz clubs here in Austin. Austin's got a very big live music scene. There's a couple jazz clubs I like to go to on occasion just to chill, hang out, have a couple beers, enjoy the ride. It's nice.
Nice, nice, nice. That when I think of that whole world, I think you're kind of like you're in I don't know, another world. But like you said, if there is something disturbing you, that experience will stick it right in your face, and it could be overwhelming.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Well, it's very much like any of the psychedelics. Really, they're kind of open the door to the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind. So all that stuff that's rolling around down there, you get access to. It kind of comes out in its own way. And so if you've got a lot of heavy stuff to deal with, if that's the most important thing you need to face in the moment, that's kind of what it comes out. Now, things like ayahuasca, DMT of all the different kinds, it's a very special kind of molecule. It's released like when we're born, when we dream, when we die. So they call it a God molecule in a lot of ways. And so there's a very real, if you believe in like reality is more than just the physical, it kind of takes you elsewhere, kind of takes you in another realm in a very real way. And it's when you're doing that, plus you've got all the baggage, like you're kind of opening yourself up to some stuff that may not be the best for you. Right. So I was fortunate where the DMT journey I did was like kind of at the end of all my work. So I was going into it fairly clear. So I had a beautiful ride. Really got to sort of connect to the divine, to that higher power in a very real, very powerful way, which is something I'd kind of struggled with all my life. Being autistic, you've got a very sort of literal sense of things. You kind of have to prove everything for yourself. And like a grew up Catholic, I'm like, yeah, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. Look at all the other religious was, you're kind of getting stuff wrong. So faith had always been hard for me until I kind of had that journey and kind of like had that very powerful experience of like connecting with that sort of sense.
Now, did that transform you in a way that you were like permanently feeling better most of the time or whatever, or you were able to kind of come out of the, that which was bothering you or disturbing you before that?
Well, no, like I said, it was kind of like at the end of the journey, right? So I'd already done like a boatload of work before that. That was more of a like solidification, kind of like a capstone of my things, and kind of also opening myself up to a broader sense of self, right? A sense of self, like as originating from soul, then instead of from the consciousness or from the physical body or from the physical mind. What I would say is a lot of the stuff, number one, permanently feeling better is such a bad thing to do. Such a bad thing to do. There's this idea that, if we're feeling bad, that's a bad thing, right? To me, that's not what emotions are all about. It comes from this idea that emotions are pain. They come from emotional wounds. We suffer emotional traumas. All this stuff happens, right? And whenever you're thinking about emotions as pain, then bad stuff, negative emotions are things to avoid. They're too much. You can't handle them. You got to run away from them, which is why everybody wants to feel good all the time. Let me get away from the bad stuff. Let me just hang out in that pleasure. Let me hang out in that bliss. Let me hang out in those good things. But the thing is, every emotion you experience, good and bad, is just your mind trying to tell you what the world around you means. Not what's happening, but what things mean. So if you're feeling bad, it's because your mind is trying to tell you or trying to ask you for help to solve a problem of some kind. If you're afraid of something, there's something dangerous out there you need away from it, right? If you're sad, it's because you lost something you valued, something that we needed, right? If you're regretful, you missed out on an opportunity to get something you needed. If you feel shame, you failed to measure up to something. All of those are incredibly useful, incredibly powerful messages that you should be paying attention to, right? Because they're trying to help you navigate the world better. So one of the biggest things that I understood and sort of realized in my own journey is like emotions don't have to be pain. It's not really what they are. And when you reframe them from pain to useful signals, now you've got a completely different world that opens up for you. Because not only does it not trigger all those survival mechanisms, right? Not only does it trigger that like very primal response to run. Number two, you get a new set of tools to help you navigate the world, understand things, and fix things better and faster. So everything actually becomes easier. Number three, you actually get access to the full extent of human experience, right? Because if you only get to feel good, then you can't go anywhere that's going to make you feel bad, which means your life gets very, very narrow. Think about monks and stuff like that, where it's like, I don't want to feel anything. I don't want to think anything. Great. Your life has to be very, very small for that to be possible. Whereas for me, I'm like, if I'm feeling bad, I'm doing it right. I'm facing challenges. I'm growing. I'm hitting my boundaries. I'm losing stuff that's valuable. I'm missing opportunities. I'm not meeting the standard. It means I got to raise the bar, right? All those things means I'm actually heading in the right direction. So feeling bad actually becomes a good thing, right? People who want to be in that happiness and joy and every time, they're running away from stuff. And it doesn't mean that there are no problems. It just means you're blind to them, which means you attempt to end up like stepping on those landmines and they blow up in your face all of a sudden. And it also means you can't fix that stuff, right? You have to be willing to look at the darkness, have to be willing to face the painful stuff. You have to be willing to feel those bad things long enough, allow them to be true long enough to figure out what's going on so you can fix it. If you're willing and able to do that, your life can change massively.
So you did a lot of work on your own, getting up to 2018, 2019. I mean, it seems like that was an extraordinary journey forward to come out of that, because I see, you know, when I look at you, I see someone who is not shackled by, they're almost like predisposed beliefs that we have. And people get in these things, maybe something happened in their childhood or whatever, they identify in a certain way and they're stuck in a, I don't know. I mean, you know more than me, but they're stuck in like a kind of a prison cell of their own environment
100%.
That's caused them to believe things that are not really true, not really them. And they need to break out of it. And it seems like you've broken out of those. I'm just throwing this out there. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different pieces there. One of the things I realized is a lot of the things we believe and understand about self-improvement work and all these things are wrong. Okay. What I mean by that is this idea of like, okay, the things you feel are not true. No. That's not how that works. Your rational mind and your emotional mind are two completely different tool sets that are looking through the world from completely different lenses and different perspectives. Your rational mind is looking like individual details, individual events, this problem, this happened, that happened, right? And that's how we approach almost everything in the Western world, because we have such a reverence for the rational and the reasonable, right? Because the whole age of enlightenment, the whole 9 yards, right? Your emotional mind is looking at things from like the 30,000 foot view, right? It's looking from the forest rather than the trees, okay? They're both operating at the same time. They're not talking to each other. They're drawing conclusions independently with different sets of tools, different sets of beliefs, different ways of interpreting the world from two different perspectives. So you're going to get two different answers by default. It's not that one is true and one's correct. No. They are both correct at the same time, at all times, even when they disagree. And especially when they disagree, okay? Because again, you're looking at two different perspectives, okay? The next thing we need to understand is that the emotional mind is faster, because it's looking at the 30,000 foot view. It doesn't need as much resolution, so it doesn't have to have as much detail, so it gets to process the world faster. So the emotional conclusion you reach sets the frame in which all those rational decisions are made, right? So this is creating the context within which everything is decided, okay? Now, when you go back to like childhood stuff and so forth and so on, this is really important, because our rational minds, our rationality, our reason doesn't really come online until like 5, 6, 7 years old. Which means up until that point, we're pretty much doing everything on an emotional level. And emotions are looking at patterns over time. They're looking at the stories that run through things, the narratives that run through things, right? They're not looking at individual details. No individual event matters, because it's looking at the forest rather than trees. Trees don't matter. It's looking at the forest, okay? But once your rationality comes online, there's a principle we talk about in hypnosis called the critical factor. It's kind of like the barrier between your conscious and your unconscious mind. And what that means is from that point forward, your unconscious mind judges true and false based on what it already believes. Okay. So if you came up with this idea of I'm not good enough and there's something wrong with me and like I don't deserve and so forth and so on, if you came up with that idea when you were young, that's now locked behind a wall, and everything that happens out there in the real world gets compared to I'm not good enough. because this is at that truth on an emotional level. I'm really successful. Does that match this? No, gets ignored. Did I get this really cool thing? Does that match this? No, gets ignored. It is false by definition because it doesn't match, which is why these feelings, these deep emotional things never change, no matter how much work you do out there. You get these guys that are making millions and billions of dollars that still not feel satisfied, feel insecure, anxious. Why? Because no amount of success out there will ever change how you feel. Ben Shapiro's that thing, like facts don't care about your feelings. Feelings don't care about your facts. So you can't change things in that way from the outside in, which is why you need tools like psychedelics, hypnosis, those kinds of things to get down into that unconscious mind, deal with that emotional belief on that level from that perspective in order to really shift those things. Does that all make sense?
It's fascinating because you hear the story of people like Matthew Perry, and he was kind of saying, he thought if he got all of these things, it would result in his overall outlook on life changing, his overall everything. And then he got all the things and none of it changed. I mean, is that kind of what wow.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's
100%. 100%. There's a guy by the name of Andrew Wilkinson. He's this venture capitalist investor, entrepreneur up in Canada. He wrote a book called Never Enough. It's about his journey from being a barista making $6 an hour to being a billionaire. Right? $6 an hour, billionaire.
Wow.
Right? Because he had this idea of like, oh, if I just make enough money, that's going to solve all the problems, because you grew up like kind of a poor household, right? And he's getting there and he's realizing still has all the anxiety, still has all the insecurities, still has all those negative thoughts. And he's thinking about it, it's like, wait a second, I am just as anxious and insecure with $1 million in the bank as I did when I had $1,000 in the bank. He started looking around, all these people, millionaires, same thing, tens of millions, same thing, hundreds of millions, same thing, billionaires, same thing, multi-billionaires, same thing. Wow. No matter how much they accomplished, no matter how much they did, no matter what they did, no matter how much money they made, never changed how they felt, never changed that outlook. Why? Because nothing that happens out there can ever change that emotional belief. It's not built that way. Your unconscious mind really, so there's a beautiful set of experiments in Germany in the 1970s that basically proved we become consciously aware of something about a half a second after it actually happens. Okay. And that makes sense because our brain's got to process all that input from the outside world and kind of filter it and so forth and so on, kind of build this picture for our conscious mind, that reality that we experience, which means your unconscious mind has to handle everything with that half second before it can understand things, right? Welcome to reactions, instincts. You're driving along, you dodge things, so forth and so on. All those instinctive reactions are your unconscious mind handling stuff before you consciously become aware of it, right? Which means your unconscious mind doesn't really understand time the way we do on the conscious level. There's no past, present, future. There's always the instantaneous now. If it's always right now, when does it have the time to step back and reevaluate things? It really doesn't, because you need to take that time to step back. Right, which is why things like hypnosis, psychedelics are so valuable, because it kind of puts pause on time and allows you to explore things that you weren't able to integrate and stuff like that.
Wow. So, I mean, what do you think when you see these situations like these Matthew Perry situations? They got to be all over the place. What?
Everywhere.
Basically, there's not much you can do until more people find out about you, right? Because right now you are treating people and helping other people, right?
Yes, 100%. So there's, in my book, it's called Winner Peace. I kind of go over everything I do, start to finish, all the theory behind it. So to the extent that I can give everybody the benefit of working with me one-on-one in that format, I give you as much as I possibly can, okay? In there, I talk about two different traps, the cage and the treadmill, all right? As humans, we have 5 different survival responses. It's not just fight or flight. There's actually 5. Fight and flight, freeze, which is that hiding response. Fawn, which is that like roll over, surrender, submit, show your belly. And then flop, just kind of like curl up in a ball and take it, right? Just endure because you don't have any other options, right? When in reality, your environment is that existential threat. Can't fight it. It's not an option. You can run. You can change your environment to some degree. Hiding is not an option. It ain't listening. So the only option is to endure. Now, when we're young, when we're children, we don't really have any options. We're stuck in the environment we have no power, we have no agency. All of us basically have to do that flop response. For some of us, around the time 12, 14, 16, 18 years old, we get in high school, we start having some agency. Some of us will have some kind of talent, some ability, whether it's academic, athletic, whatever it happens to be, that give us an opportunity, a way out of the situation we're in. Okay? If you never get that opportunity, you're stuck in the cage. You're in that space where, okay, we're going to create a little space where everything's safe, everything's okay, right? Everything's comfortable, lights are on, food's on the table, roof over your head, but you're stuck in this relative mediocrity. Everything you really want to go for is on the outside of the cage, you're not allowed, right? That's really easy to recognize. That second one is the most wicked trap. I call that the treadmill, all right? Why? Because you're chasing after the thing you want, and you're doing exactly what you want, and you're getting all these rewards, and everybody's telling you you're doing amazing. You're getting all this fame and money and so forth and so on. And everybody's like, how do I get to become you? But you're stuck on that treadmill running, chasing that carrot. And you're running from that pain. So you got that double-edged sword. You got that double motivation, right? And the thing is, if you ever stop chasing that carrot, you get the stick, right? Which is why these guys can never stop off there, right? They get they make this big goal, they achieve it, they feel great for that achievement, and what happens? They don't feel good anymore. Got to set another goal, and they just keep chasing. And people like Matthew Perry, like who's the Joker guy? What was his name?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
The one that
you
has
know what I'm
the
talking
brother
about,
too, right? What?
Yeah, exactly. He ended up in his life too. Like all these guys, what are they trying to get? Fame, fortune, affirmation, external validation. Why? Because they don't feel good about themselves, and it's never enough because you can't change things from the outside in that way. You see it everywhere. See it all over the place, right? Alex Hormozi, big, heavy entrepreneur, making $500 million a year in his mid-30s, still trying to put points on the board, right? And because everybody's saying you're doing exactly the right thing, because you're getting all this external validation, because society is reinforcing you in all these ways, it is so hard to recognize you're in that trap. But it's really easy to figure out if you just ask yourself one question. If I took my foot off the gas for like 30 days, how would I feel? Right? If I didn't pursue the business, if I didn't go after these things, right? If I didn't reinforce this stuff, if I wasn't like putting points on the board, how would I feel if I took the foot off the gas for 30 days? And if you feel in any way, shape, or form like I can't do that, then what you're doing is not a choice, it's a compulsion. Right? If you can't say no, if you can't make another choice, you're not actually making a choice. You're trapped.
And, it seems like our society and our surroundings don't help matters at all because they basically exploit wherever trap you're in. They sell you products to, they sell you things in accordance with wherever you're at in that tier system. I mean, if you're down here, you're going to need this. If you're over here, you're going to need that. And if you're not getting what you thought you needed, I don't know, they almost enable you to want to just double and triple and scale. Like you say, so we're talking about scale it up higher. And it will never happen. It'll never happen.
Exactly.
No matter how many.
Exactly. And that was one of the things where I'm actually kind of grateful that I'm autistic, because one of the things about autism or me being autistic is I can't lie to myself. I can't like fake it till you make it. I can't pretend this stuff worked. It's like, I was supposed to get this thing. I don't actually have it. It's supposed to feel better. I don't actually have it. Right. But most normal people, what do they do all the time? Oh, just keep going. Just keep going. They can actually like, oh, I can fake it till I make it. I just got to pretend. I can't pretend. So most everybody else, almost every normal person, they can pretend for a while, which is what gets them trapped in that loop so long, because they can't, it's hard for them to acknowledge that it's not working. Right. And a lot of it has to do with hope. Right. Oh, if I just keep going, it'll fix it. Everybody just says, just keep going, you'll fix it. So I've got hope. I've got hope. I get hope. If I lose that hope, things get really dangerous really fast. Right? Over 300,000 people in the United States last year died of deaths of despair. Right. Because they lost hope. Right? Because they lost that hope. Hope is incredibly valuable. And man, you lose that thing, it is so dangerous. So a lot of times, the reason why they're stuck in these loops is just to give themselves hope. Just to say, oh, if I just keep going, then there'll finally be a solution. Right? I didn't have that option, unfortunately.
If they don't have an actual path to get out of it, like you were able to do, it's really hopium, right? It's hopium. It's just, they're just taking it as a drug. They're taking hope as a drug in order to constantly relieve. It's like a pain reliever, painkiller.
Yes. But here's the thing. Have you ever heard of anybody say your self-improvement journey will be done? Have you ever heard of anybody ever saying, oh, you're going to be done with your self-improvement journey? There's a point where you're fixed, you're completely finished. No, nobody says that. Has anybody ever said that you're done with your healing journey? All your traumas are taken care of, your wounds are taken care of, you're healed. No, for two reasons. Number one, when you're thinking emotions or pain, they come from these wounds, then any negative experience you've had is another wound to heal. And while you're healing all this stuff in the past, more stuff is happening to you. So there's this never-ending process because there's always something else to fix. If you're in the self-improvement space, you could always be 1% better every day. Right? So I wake up in the morning, I'm not good enough, got to improve. Wake up the next morning, not good enough, got to improve. The finish line keeps moving. Right? Why? Because you're on this treadmill of trying to prove this to yourself. Right? I have to prove how good I am because I don't like who I am. I don't like that answer. I can't accept that answer. I got to keep proving it, but it never works. So one of the biggest things that I do, the entire purpose of what I do is to get my clients to a place where their core beliefs are, there's nothing wrong with me and there never was. Which means there's nothing to fix and there never was. There's nothing to heal and there never was. Right? I'm good enough as I am to deserve whatever I choose. I don't have to prove it to anybody else, not even myself. When you do that, this is fine. You don't have to fix this anymore. There's nothing to heal. You're done working with this. The only thing you have to do is worry about how do I navigate life, right? Given how this is wired, everything is working exactly as intended, functioning exactly as designed. I have ADHD, bipolar disorder, autism. This thing's wired up really freaking weird. Makes life really hard in a lot of ways. But given how it's wired, everything's happening exactly as it should. Of course, I can't navigate situations, social situations the way everybody else can. I'm basically socially colorblind. There's a lot of nuance and detail that I simply cannot perceive. So I got to build a different set of tools to deal with that. I'm bipolar. Can go off the rails. So I got to have medication to put up the guardrails. I got ADHD. Don't have enough dopamine. Don't have enough gas. Got to supplement that stuff, right? Can't change what I am. That's not the problem. Problem is, how do I navigate the world given how I'm built? Stop fixing this. Stop trying to heal this. Ain't nothing wrong with this. We're looking in the wrong place. And once you can make that shift, now you can make amazing results, make amazing progress because you're done trying to take care of yourself. All those parts of yourself are pushed away. You can't accept, all those things about yourself you don't like. You can accept that and integrate that to where you're actually a whole coherent being and actually be who you are. The reason why I create these egos, the reason why we want to be somebody else is because we don't like who we are, which means we're living a lie. Once you actually accept, understand, fully integrate yourself, you don't need that anymore. You just get to be you, in your most authentic expression in the best way possible.
Is this a little bit kind of like getting out of the Matrix or something? What they talk about, that movie Matrix, where people talk about that. It is
kind of. I mean, you're breaking out of the lies you've told yourself about who you are. Right? There's this whole story you have about why you are the way you are and where you're supposed to be, and it's wrong. It has to be wrong. Number one, you're doing it from a rational perspective, so you're looking at all these details. If you're sitting in the middle of Times Square in New York, you can map that thing with precision down to the millimeter. And it's going to tell you absolutely nothing about what New York looks like from 30,000 feet. You can't get there from here, right? So all this work you're doing on all these stories you understand so clearly have absolutely no impact on an emotional conclusion, which is why that never works, right? So there has to be something wrong with that story, because if you're right, you would have fixed that stuff by now. Right? If you're right that do this thing and I'm happy, you would have been happy by now. You've already done all the things you said would make you happy. You've already hit those goals. If that was going to work, it would have worked by now. Right? You're doing right. So that's the lie you're trapped in. That's the lie almost everybody is trapped in, is this idea of, I just do these things from the outside in. No. You got to do it from the inside out. You have to address those emotional beliefs, deconstruct those, and re-engineer those into something that's more supportive of who you want to be and where you want to go in life in order to really set yourself loose. Because when you're coming at it from this idea of I am good enough, then all this other stuff, it's not imposter syndrome. No, I'm worthy, right? And when that's your belief, nothing that happens out there can ever shake it. Your world can go to absolute crap. Everything can go wrong and you're still fine about who you are. It's just a problem I need to solve, just a situation I need to navigate. And because I was there, this past year and a half, been a heck of a lot easier to navigate than I otherwise would be. Because I found out that I had bipolar disorder last summer. I found out the hard way. I had an acute manic episode. I had a psychotic break. Got arrested. My business went to crap because I couldn't work for over a year. I had to do all that medication stuff to try and get my head right. And most of them messed me up. Couldn't really work. There were days I couldn't get out of bed until 2 in the afternoon. One of them actually made me one in my life for about 2.5 weeks. That was an interesting experience. And if I didn't have that understanding that there's nothing actually wrong with me, I'm good as I am, it would have been much, much harder to endure all that. My business lost 75% of its revenue. If that was how I was giving myself worth, I was done. But because I had that core belief set, I could go through all of that, even though it was rough, even though it was hard, and know I'm fine. I just need to process this. I just need to roll through this process. It's just some things I need to work through. And on the other side, I'm going to be good. And now that I am sorted for the past 2-3 months, now I can actually start rebuilding things. Not from a place of, oh, I'm so messed up. Oh, I'm so bad. Like, oh, all the shame and stuff. Like, no. Okay, now I'm actually ready. Now I'm actually prepared. Now I can do the work I need to do.
Wow, that's tremendous, because it's hard to look at you and think of someone who so recently had gone through so many spectacular changes. You know, it just seems like you've had your act together forever talking to you right now. So it's a phenomenal thing.
Well, and in a lot of ways, like when you change that perspective of there's nothing wrong with me and never was, you kind of have been okay all your life. Nothing healed never was, you kind of have been okay with your life, right? Once you sort of reframe that and look at your life through that lens, all that stuff's okay. All these things are just challenges I had to overcome and maybe who I am, which gave me this gift that I can give to the world, right? I just didn't understand back then, just made the mistakes. That's okay. I understand things now. It's good. I can accept it. I can understand it. I can forgive myself for misunderstanding things back then. I can forgive myself for all the crap I did to myself, doing the best I could. And once you accept all this stuff, great. Now there's nothing wrong with me. I just get to be my authentic self, as I should have been all along. This is what it looks like when you don't judge yourself anymore. They talk about confidence as this thing you gain. Oh, I gain confidence for being competent, right? But everybody's 100% competent at being themselves. So everybody should be 100% confident, but they're not. Why? Because confidence isn't about what you gain. It's about what you lose. It's about losing the fear and the doubt and the uncertainty in a while away. I'm not afraid of myself. No doubts about myself. I'm 100% certain who I am. Utterly confident because I've got no questions.
Well, folks, I hope you are all going to get as much out of this as I have gotten. And we really hope to stay in touch with Ryan as he continues his journey, get him back on the show and continue to learn from him. Absolutely. It's extraordinary, the things that we're getting out of this podcast today. I'm even going to do one more short improvisation. But before I even do that, Ryan, where can people get a hold? I know 3 words, folks, if you remember. Ryan the Hypnotist. You can find him everywhere. But is that basically it? Yeah. So just
that's my Ryan website. Yeah. So RyanTheHypnotist.com, Ryan W. Christensen on LinkedIn. If you hop on the website, I'd be happy to do a free 45-minute consultation with anybody, dig into what's going on in your life, tell you why things are happening the way they are, tell you why things haven't worked the way you wanted to, talk about how we can help you out. The second thing I was to say is my book is called Winner Peace, WINNER Peace. How to End Inner Conflict, Make Success Inevitable. Everything that I can do for you, to the extent that I can give you every benefit of working with me in that book, I try and do as best I can. It's actually created as a written hypnosis program to make sure that stuff sinks in as much as possible. Today, November 26th, is actually free on Kindle. So anybody out there that's listening, my gift to you.
Wow, great. Fantastic. Well, folks, there you have it. We're going to get the information out about that. And I'm going to do one more little thing that we're going to use like as filler in here. And we'll be back in just a minute with it. What that was. That was just something that came from our conversation.
Love it. Love it.
Great. So everyone, on behalf of our wonderful guests, stick with the Jazz for Peace podcast and great people like Ryan Christensen, so that you can learn, as we are learning, that the final solution is love. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.